And for the next half hour, I'll be reading from the June 11th, 2026 issue of the River Rock Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Community appreciation. Hopes for improvements shared by BlackRock East Side residents. At the end of a 2-hour event in which residents from BlackRock and Buffalo's East Side, closest to the Humboldt Parkway Highway project, a resident stood up and asked what might be the quintessential question when it comes to two neighborhoods that might appear drastically different on the surface. I have one general question. These are two separate projects. Ken Leverett said of efforts to remove or modify both the Scagacquata Expressway and the Kensington Expressway. To my mind, they are very, very close together physically. Has there ever been a thought, from a larger context, combining both of them together because one actually affects the other? It seems like if you fix the 33 and forget the 198, it's kind of silly. And vice versa, if you do something major to the 198 and there's nothing to do with the 33, it seems kind of silly. So have there been any thoughts, just a conversation or whatever, about combining the two of them into one holistic approach? For more than 2 years, professors from the State University of New York at Buffalo's Rudy Bruner Center for Urban Excellence and the Department of Learning and Instruction and the Graduate School of Education have been collecting personal histories and anecdotes from residents in both BlackRock and the neighborhoods closest to the 33 to hear what's missing in their communities and what improvements they'd like to see. At first, neither group knew about the other side of the conversation until they were brought together a few months ago to share their stories. The result of this research, the Community Learning Showcase, found that people are passionate about their neighborhoods and want to see them thrive, but also share concerns about the major roadways that have physically divided their communities. During Thursday night's presentation, a series of poster boards outlining the timeline of the changes in each community was set up around the room. One display included a map from 1946 that showed the proposed construction of both the Scagacquata and the Kensington. The conversation at the time was, we have to build the Scagacquata because we're going to build the Kensington. We have to build the Kensington because we're going to build the Scagacquata, explained Lauren Fisher, an assistant professor of urban and regional planning at the University of Buffalo. They were always envisioned to be dependent on one another as a highway infrastructure. The evening featured personal stories from a few residents in each neighborhood, including Eve Wackett from BlackRock, who told of wishing for a future in which she could walk her dog, Buttercup, along the Jesse Kriegel pathway and hear the creek instead of the cars. She also said she's often found interesting wildlife, like minks, swimming in the creek near the Peter Street Dam, and would like to see people kayaking and walking there with more access to Delaware Park. A vision that aligns with the region's central plan for removing the 198, a proposal that was approved by the Greater Buffalo Niagara Regional Transportation Council, but whose funding was put on hold last year as the state focused on the changes to Route 33. On the other side of town, residents spoke of the tall canopy of trees they remember along Humboldt Parkway when they grew up on the east side, how connected they felt with their neighbors and the sense of community they had. People gathered together and enjoyed the space, something they no longer do as a result of the busy roadway. When the two groups initially got together, and again on Thursday night, they found they had more in common than they had differences. They wanted a safer, healthier neighborhood, once again populated by locally owned businesses, that are rooted in their communities. They shared a sense of pride in being from their specific neighborhood, regardless of what people who lived elsewhere did or didn't know about it. A preamble to each video included asking Buffalonians what they knew about Jefferson Avenue or Black Rock. In both cases, those interviewed said they knew little about the neighborhood or brought up that each had problems or trouble. To answer Leverett's question, the microphone first went to Ellen Harris Harvey, a resident of the Black Rock Historical Society, and specifically the Trinidad neighborhood, who has long been a community advocate. Before 15 years ago, both of these projects were combined, she said. It used to be one project, and then it split, and ROC, Restore Our Community Coalition, was formed when it split to address the 33 project because that's their community, right where people sit on Humboldt Parkway who are being affected by the highway. She said that while her neighborhood was not included in the UB project initially, she has been interviewed by the teams and believes her community of 200 homes on 37 acres continues to work to restore some of the green spaces, slow down the traffic, and combine these projects to bring back Humboldt Parkway, both for the beautification of the neighborhoods and for the health benefits of reduced car emissions for those who live nearby. Mary Ann Kedron, a member of the cohort representing Black Rock in the research, who has also been involved with the work of the Skagway Corridor Coalition to restore the 198, added that Buffalo's mayor has asked the State Department of Transportation to be designated as lead agency on the 198, which would allow it to make some changes to the roadway without waiting for the state to intervene. Groups from both sides of the city talk all the time. We'll sit there and commiserate, we'll talk, we'll plan together. It is very interesting to me that the New York State Department of Transportation, in one fell swoop, pit these two communities against each other by staging things, she said. They are very, very skilled at putting one community against the other. If you talk to the communities, we all want the same thing. While Mayor Sean Ryan has not received any communication from the Department of Transportation about lead agency status, and the Department of Transportation repeatedly says it is focused on the Queen City Forward effort to redesign the Kensington, we are trying to put as much pressure as possible on the Department of Transportation to say, let the city of Buffalo and its citizens say what they want and need, Kedron said. Because we're not fighting against each other, people are pitting us against each other, and I'm done with it. Thursday night's event marked the end of the pilot phase of the research, Fisher said. We are now going into a place where we're going to start analyzing that, and we're going to start looking at what we did learn and what were the conflicts. We're going to do what academics do. We're going to write some papers and we're going to read about things, but we're also going to be thinking about where do these artifacts live? Where does the video go? Where do the maps go? Flag Day, honoring a symbol of unity and freedom. Each year on June 14th, Americans observe Flag Day, a time to recognize and celebrate one of the nation's most enduring symbols, the Stars and Stripes. While it may not receive the same attention as some other patriotic holidays, Flag Day offers an important opportunity to reflect on the history of our flag and the values it represents. Flag Day commemorates June 14th, 1777, when the Continental Congress adopted the first official American flag. The resolution was simple. Resolved that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field. Those original stars and stripes represented the 13 colonies that had declared their independence and embarked on the difficult journey of building a new nation. Over the centuries, the flag has evolved as new states joined the Union. The importance of the flag extends beyond its design. It symbolizes the principles on which the United States was founded: liberty, equality, democracy, and opportunity. For generations of Americans, it has served as a reminder of the sacrifices made by soldiers, public servants, and ordinary citizens who worked to preserve and strengthen those ideals. Flag Day also reminds us that patriotism is more than displaying a banner or attending a ceremony. True patriotism involves active citizenship, participating in our communities, respecting differing viewpoints, and working together to solve common challenges. The flag represents not only our history, but also our shared responsibility for the nation's future. In an era when public discourse can often seem divided, the American flag remains a symbol that belongs to all Americans. Regardless of political beliefs, background, or geography, it reflects a common bond and a shared commitment to the promise of the United States. As Flag Day approaches, citizens are encouraged to display the flag proudly, learn more about its history, and take a moment to consider what it represents. By honoring the flag, we honor the generations who came before us and reaffirm our dedication to the ideals that continue to guide our nation. Polish Cadets is the new polling place for the 13th and 22nd districts. As happens before every general election and primary, the Erie County Board of Elections has mailed out cards listing the polling locations for everyone in Erie County who is eligible to vote in the upcoming Democratic Party primary to replace now Mayor Sean Ryan in his former state Senate seat. For those Black Rock residents who have voted at the American Legion Post on Amherst Street, be forewarned, your polling location has changed. The postcard indicates the new polling place is the Polish Cadets, 927 Grant Street. The change in polling place is due to a few factors, explains Derek Murphy, a spokesperson for the Erie County Board of Elections. There's some construction taking place at the Legion, in addition to the new Caribbean restaurant Cornai in the rear half of the building. Another factor that may have contributed is the need to have access to the polling place from 5 a.m. until 10 p.m. on Election Day in November, which means keeping on the lights and heat in what has been a pretty sizable room that otherwise was not needing those utilities, suggests Ann McCooey, president of the Black Rock and Riverside Alliance. The Legion decided not to be a polling place before the restaurant went in, she says. There were also some scheduling conflicts with other organizations that used the space or the front hall that is still operated by the Legion on a regular basis instead of once a year. It made sense for the Legion's management to bow out. Wendy Higgins, president of the Polish Cadets, confirms she reached out to the Board of Elections to offer replacing the Legion as a polling place. Polish Cadets has been noted as a peaceful place for the community to gather for many years, she says, adding that the voting machines will be located in the restaurant area of the building on the first floor. We're happy to provide a location for the community to come cast their vote. Early voting for the June 23rd primary begins this Saturday, June 13th, but the Cadets will only be an Election Day option for those in Buffalo North 13 and Buffalo North 22. Anyone eligible to vote in the primary can cast a ballot early on one of the 11 locations in the city of Buffalo, or 27 additional locations throughout Erie County, as listed on the Board of Elections website. The North District location for early voting is the Northwest Community Center, 155 Lawn Avenue. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the River Rock Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Buffalo Breeze. Waterfront gets ready for the 4th. The Buffalo Waterfront will host two major events for the country's 250th anniversary, the weekend of July 3rd through 5th. Buffalo Waterfront, along with the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, announced today that Independence Day weekend will see the return of the world's largest rubber duck, the 6-story tall waterfowl that last visited Buffalo in 2016, and a summer night at the Outer Harbor's Terminal B with Joanne Falletta and the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, celebrating the spirit of America through music on July 3rd. There is something uniquely powerful about gathering by the water, with music as the backdrop and the city all around us, said Falletta, the BPO's acclaimed music director. This concert is about coming together with friends, family, and neighbors to share a summer night filled with energy, beauty, and connection. It is a celebration of Buffalo as much as it is a celebration of music. The concert will begin at 7 p.m., with fireworks immediately following at approximately 9:15 p.m. Tickets for this free performance are limited and available online on a first-come, first-served basis. Foldable chairs will be permitted for this show, but are subject to security inspection. A summer evening with a free performance featuring the incredible talent of the BPO is a can't-miss experience, said Michelle Cicatello, marketing manager, Buffalo Waterfront. Terminal B is the perfect place to take it all in and celebrate our country's milestone anniversary. The lawn at Canalside will also be bustling Independence Day weekend, with Mama Duck and her 10-foot-tall baby duck, Timmy, landing at the downtown waterfront on July 3rd, in an encore to her memorable visit a decade ago. Born at Canalside, Buffalo Apparel is especially excited to be part of welcoming the world's largest rubber duck this summer and to continually join in creating moments that celebrate Buffalo, its people, and the heart of the city, said Patty Watson, owner of Buffalo Apparel. From July 3rd to July 5th, both ducks will be available for photo ops and general viewing. There will also be plenty of duck-related special programming and a festival atmosphere, including 25 golden ducks placed around the site that can be redeemed for a gift, plus food and beer trucks, and family-friendly activities. The world's largest rubber duck made plenty of fans on her last visit in 2016, and we're thrilled to welcome her back, this time on land, Cicatello said. It's an extra fun reason to visit Canalside on one of the most festive weekends of the year. Bars stay open until 4 a.m. for World Cup. A bill signed into law by Governor Kathy Hochul, aimed at providing more offerings for World Cup attendees, will allow bars and restaurants to stay open longer. Passed by the state legislature over the past weekend, the law will allow businesses in New York counties with earlier closing times to operate until 4 a.m. from June 11th to July 20th. The measure temporarily overrides more restrictive hours set by the state liquor authority. The World Cup is coming to New York, and I want every New Yorker and local business to be part of the action and celebration. No ticket required, Hochul, a Democrat, said in a statement. From the first kick to the last whistle, bars and restaurants across our state can stay open throughout the tournament, bringing New Yorkers together to cheer on every goal and supporting small businesses across the state. The electric influence of a good mother. Nikola Tesla was, in many ways, the stereotype of a mad scientist. His mother was kind, curious, and loving. She encouraged him to look beyond his humble beginnings to the world stage, by the foundation for a better life. The last name that is most famous today for the car that bears his name began as a knowledge-obsessed schoolboy. One of 5 children, Nikola Tesla was intelligent and curious about the unknown forces in the world, electricity and magnetics. His father, an Orthodox priest, hoped his son would become a man of the cloth, but Tesla was more interested in the hard evidence of what existed and was yet to be harnessed. His mother, Georgina, was an intelligent woman in her own right, an inventor of gadgets that made difficult house chores easier. I must trace to my mother's influence whatever inventiveness I possess, Tesla reflected. My mother was especially gifted with a sense of intuition, an inventor of the first order, and would, I believe, have achieved great things had not she been so remote from modern life. The small hovel Tesla grew up in was dimly lit by the frugal candles, a piece of braided thread dipped in wax and inserted into a turnip. By this pale light, Tesla watched his mother tinker, listened to his father read, and let his imagination run off into the unyielding woodlands in which they lived. Those woodlands played a role in who Tesla became. On the day of his birth, there was a great thunderstorm. The village midwife, terrorized by the thunderclaps and lightning, decreed, "He'll be a child of the storm," to which the mother in labor answered, "No, a child of light." Tesla's mother led the effort to raise money for her son's education. It was she who inspired his curiosity and defended his unorthodox personality. She taught him to pursue that inner voice of intellectual longing, perhaps one she herself had no means to pursue. Tesla became what many physicists call the father of the 20th century. His working on the alternating current, induction motor, and wireless technology influenced Edison and Westinghouse Electric. He theorized wireless communications and even demonstrated a wireless boat. His developments in a brushless electric motor are still in use today, as are his early developments for the incandescent light. For all his scientific breakthroughs, the fortune he earned and spent, it was his mother he remembered most fondly at the end of his life. In her final weeks, he sat with her for days without sleeping, not wanting to miss her passing. He had abandoned the lecture circuit in Paris to be with her, his first inspiration, his guiding light. Her last words to him were, "You've arrived, Nikola, my dear." New York legislature wraps up least productive session in years. Good government groups are blasting New York's Democratic-controlled New York legislature for its least productive session in years, and for pushing through hundreds of special interest bills without public hearings. The State Assembly and Senate wrapped up its annual session last week after frantically pushing through a slew of bills. But the New York Public Interest Group, or NYPIRG, said the more than month-late budget and a logjam of unfinished legislation made it one of the least productive gatherings in years. A NYPIRG analysis found the Senate and Assembly approved 759 bills this session, more than 100 less than last year's legislative session. That's also the lowest number of bills approved by the legislature since Democrats took control of it in 2019, aside from a pause in lawmaking during the COVID-19 pandemic, according to NYPIRG. In 2022, for example, lawmakers passed more than 1,000 bills. Of course, the legislature could have stayed beyond the scheduled end of the session, but that would have cut into campaign time, NYPIRG said. With many legislators facing primaries at the end of the month, few wanted to hang around and miss time on the campaign trail. Tardy budgets have become common practice in Albany, but NYPIRG said this year's spending package, which was due April 1st, was so late that it impacted the legislature's ability to deliberate over non-budget related legislation. If the budget had been on time, according to the legislature's calendar, lawmakers would have had 2 months to tackle non-budget issues, the group said. This year, the legislature had 1 week. The group also criticized Hochul, who was also seeking a re-election in November, for using her executive budget powers to get what she wants, saying the practice adds to a logjam of unfinished business and squeezes out solutions to problems that could have been addressed. New Yorkers will never know whether if state lawmakers had more time, they would have addressed the issues mentioned or other important unaddressed legislation, the report's authors wrote. When common sense legislation stalls year after year, the explanation that the clock ran out gets stale. Meanwhile, in the rush to push through bills in the final weeks of the session, lawmakers also held fewer public hearings to vet proposals, according to the group Reinvent Albany, which called the most recent session dismal. For example, New York Senate and Assembly just voted for a resolution to amend the state constitution to allow the extreme gerrymandering of state legislative districts, the group said Tuesday in a statement. Would they have passed the resolution after a public hearing where it was assailed by concerned citizens and then editorial boards? By contrast, California, a much larger state, passes more bills every year and requires that all bills be considered at a public hearing before passage, and around 90% ultimately are, Reinvent Albany noted. Public hearings may seem arcane, but shining a bright light on proposed legislation is immensely helpful to the public interest, the group said. New York's democracy is stagnating under the weight of big dog special interests maximizing their gains and crushing attempts to make our state government more responsive, transparent, and accountable to the broader public. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 11th, 2026 issue of the River Rock Times. We read from the River Rock Times on Tuesdays at 8:30 a.m. Your reader has been Julian Wong. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. Welcome to another broadcast day on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. Radio Reading volunteers broadcast daily readings on newspapers, magazines, and books that are blind and handicapped persons who are provided reading radios. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or any questions you may have, and stay with us. The Buffalo News is coming up next.
The following program